What I'm going to do in this next part is I'm actually going to go through a few of the examples that are in your booklet with you, just so that you can see how we do this. So, here's the first example I want you to do. The first example is example number 6. So we want to find the shorter length. We want to find the value of the pronumeral in this triangle. If you have a look, we have this missing side over here. That is A. We have that missing side A. We don't know what A is, and we're trying to find it. So in our triangle, we have two other sides. We have our 17 and our 15. When we're using this to find our shorter sides, I'm going to go through the steps. First thing we do, we write Pythagoras' theorem. Here I'm going to go c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. So this is step 1, write Pythagoras'. That's the same first step that we did when we looked at finding the length of the hypotenuse. It's the same first step that we're going to do here. Once we've done that, we are going to substitute our values in. Now, here, we know the length we know the two lengths, 17, and I'm not sure if my pen is allowing me to do this, but let's see if I can go. Oh. We've got 17 and 15. Those are our two other lengths. We want to figure out which ones those are. We want to figure out where to substitute those values in. The one that we need to be careful of is just this 117 length here. If you remember, the length that is opposite the right angle is always the hypotenuse. This is the value of C. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute 17 into here, C. So I'm going to replace C with 17. I'm going to have 17 squared is equal to, A is still the same, and instead of B, I'm going to put in 15 squared. So here I'm going to substitute. Now the second step that we had for here is not just to substitute, but we have to rearrange. We want to rearrange this for A. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this plus 15 squared to the other side and just swap the two sides. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to go A squared is equal to 17 squared minus 15 squared. That's what we saw from above. When we rearranged it, when we moved that plus b to the other side, we got c squared minus b squared, and all we're doing is we're just swapping the two sides after. So we've got a squared is equal to c squared minus b squared. Okay. So here I've done my substitute and rearrange. Okay, so I've done that next step. The step after that is then we square them and subtract. So we've got a squared still. I'm going to square those two values and subtract them. So I'm going to go 17 squared minus 15 squared. So I'm going to do this on my calculator here. I'm going to go 17 squared, just like that, minus 15 squared. So I've got 17 squared minus 15 squared, and so the answer I get is 64. So I've got a squared is equal to 64. So this is the third step. So this is square and subtract. So we square the two values, 17 and 15, which is what we have in the equation, and then we subtract the two. Okay, and the last step when we're trying to find the value of a is we need to take this square root. So I'm going to take the square root of 64. Now some of you may already know what the square root of 64 is, but I'm going to put it into my calculator here anyway. Square root, I'm going to press this button A and S, which is just the answer from the previous part. So here, because the answer from the previous part was 64, it's going to take the square root of 64 for me. So here I'm going to take square root of 64, which will give me 8. So A is equal to 8. So this is step 4, square root. Okay. So those are the 4 steps all put together. First step, we write Pythagoras' theorem. We write down c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. Once we've done that, then we substitute and rearrange our values. I substituted my 17, my 15, and also my missing length a. I kept it where it was in my equation. Then once I've substituted those values in, I need to rearrange my equation. I rearranged it, and so I made it so that I had 17 minus 15 squared. 17 squared minus 15 squared. That's what the rearrange step was. And that's the important step here when you're trying to figure out the length of missing shorter sides. Because with shorter sides, you're not going to just be able to easily substitute our values into an equation like this. Okay. Then the steps after that are exactly the same when we're finding the length of hypotenuses. Just we square, and then instead of adding this time, we subtract. Okay, so that's his first example here.